Recording. I want to make sure that I have. Okay, looks like we have people coming in. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We are about ready to start our webinar here today. I hope everyone is having a great day, a great Wednesday. I first want to thank everybody for being here with us, for taking the time out of your day to be part of this very important and very informative webinar. And we are looking forward to quite the treat today. We have two very esteemed guests with us. I will start though by introducing myself. My name is Aisha Jones. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Partnership and Engagement Associate here with WREN, with the Women's Rights and Empowerment Network. Again, happy to be with all of you today. And so just before we get started, we are going to do just a little bit of a Zoom housekeeping. Let me move back. So just to make everyone aware, this webinar is being recorded. The chat is going to only be used by co-hosts to share important links, contact information, and so forth. So as we move through the webinar today, there will be some very important resource links that my wonderful co-host, Ashley Lito, who's also our Chief Strategy Officer, she will be sharing those links in the chat with us. We do want you to also be aware that you can submit questions. We will allow time to answer those questions at the end of the webinar. And also, another important thing to note, live captions are available, and the icon to enable them is at the bottom of your Zoom window. And I will be sure that you get all of the info, the links, the resources in our webinar recap that we will be sending out. So, with all of that being said, let's move into today's webinar. Again, this is just a brief introduction about myself. I won't bore you all with reading this entire slide, but again, my name is Aisha Jones. I serve as a Partnership and Engagement Associate here with WREN. I am very, very excited about this webinar as someone who is engaged in community and always trying to stay abreast of the policies that are happening. The Crown Act is one that is very important to me. So I'm, again, very happy to have each and every one of you here. And I would like to give a brief introduction of our presenters. With us today, we have C. Michelle Greene-Smalls, who is a nurse, a nonfiction author, and a passionate advocate. And Michelle, I'm going to allow you to tell us a little bit about yourself. And as you all can see, Ashley is also dropping this resource to the link to Michelle's website in our chat. But Michelle, please go ahead and feel free to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle. Like Aisha mentioned, I wrote a book, Quit Making Excuses and Lock Your Hair. I'm also a nurse. I'm in the Charleston area. And the Crown Act is something that I really want us to get passed in South Carolina. I'm passionate about that. I'm excited to have Senator Tameika Devine on the call so she can share more information with us. And thank you, everyone, for joining.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here with us. And as Michelle mentioned, we have Senator Tameika Devine also on the call with us. Senator Devine is an attorney, an advocate, and a longtime public servant, and also, as we mentioned, a state senator. So welcome, Senator Devine. Please feel free to give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself as well.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much, WREN, for hosting this webinar, and thank all of you for tuning in. I am Senator Tameika Devine. I am a state senator here in South Carolina. I represent Senate District 19, which is the north to northeastern part of Richland County. Before I was in the Senate, I actually served 19 and a half years as a Columbia City Councilwoman. And I am I introduced the Crown Act here in the South Carolina State Senate in the last legislative session. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that and how you all can help us get it passed here in South Carolina. But I am, as you can tell, I have natural hair, did not always have natural hair. I went natural maybe probably about seven or 8 years ago now. And I have the mom of two beautiful daughters who have beautiful, beautiful natural hair. And I am really, really passionate about not only us passing the Crown Act, but really doing a lot more in this state that recognizes and appreciates everybody's backgrounds and culture, and so that we can be a more inclusive state.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Senator. And we're going to just move along into our webinar. So just a few little notes about the presentation objectives here today. We're going to talk about what the Crown Act is. We are also going to give a landscape of where the Crown Act stands nationally and on a statewide level, why the Crown Act is important. And then again, as mentioned earlier, we are going to share some very valuable resources with you all today. So, what is the Crown Act? The Crown Act is an acronym that stands for Creating Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair. And it also protects against race-based hair discrimination in work and school by banning bias against natural textures and protective styles. And so we want to make sure that as we are talking about the Crown Act and as we are giving you all resources to learn more about the Crown Act, that we talk a little bit about the history of the movement. The four women that you see on your screen are the women that are responsible for introducing the Crown Act to be part of legislation all throughout our country. And so this study, this came about, the Crown Movement came about after a Dove did a study listing out some discrimination and issues that women face when choosing to wear their hair in its natural state. And you can, of course, see some of these statistics on this particular slide, but these women are the faces of the Crown movement. And so we want to make sure that as we are moving through this webinar that we give them their due and that we make sure that they receive their flowers for introducing this important movement into our country. There is an article that was done in Ebony magazine that details the work behind this movement. And we also want to note that long before 2019, the Crown Act and hair-based discrimination has been an issue in our communities for quite a while. And so the Crown Act is an act that we hope will help to mitigate and ultimately eliminate the discrimination against natural hairstyles, allowing women to feel comfortable and not be discriminated against and understand that their hair is professional in whatever state they choose to wear it in. And again, we are doing this in July. This is not, this is intentional. It is done because the history of this movement lets us know that the Crown Act began in July. So while we are moving through the webinar, again, we want you to be keep in mind that these are the faces of the Crown Act. And so also as part of this movement, there are other organizations who are in coalition. As you can see, the Color of Change, National Urban League, and Western Center on Law and Poverty have helped form the coalition for the Crown Act. And just a note also, the Crown Act is passed in California. So along with California Senator Holly J. Mitchell, the Crown Act was passed unanimously and it helped expand protections under employment and education laws. And this was the first U.S. law to ban discrimination against natural and protective styles, so braids, locks, twists. And just before I move along to our next slide, I'd like to ask if Senator Isaac Devine or if Michelle, if either of you have anything that you'd like to add to what we've discussed just briefly about the Crown Act before we move along. All
Yep.
right. Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
I was gonna say you're fine.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to move along to what the current landscape looks like both nationally and statewide. So nationally, there are 27 states so far that have Crown Act protection. If you're looking at this map, which is a resource that we have gotten from the Crown Act website, if you're looking at this map, you'll see the blue states are the states where there is Crown Act protection enacted. Within those blue states, there are what you may see as smaller dots, and that simply means that there are cities within those states that also have Crown Act enacted in their particular municipalities within the states. So they are able to enforce the Crown Act at a municipal level within the states. And so this is what it looks like nationally in terms of the blue states. We are, again, working on this here in South Carolina, as Senator Isaac Devine has mentioned. And so, with that being said, as I've already talked about the 27 states nationally that have Crown protection, I would like to hand it over to Senator Tameika Isaac Devine to talk a little bit about her work in terms of a statewide policy level with the Crown Act. So, Senator Isaac Devine, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon again, y'all. The Crown Act is something that I have known about for several years. When you looked at the history and the faces, doctor, she got her doctorate last year. Dr. Ajwa Asamoah is actually a friend, a sorority sister of mine. Senator Holly Mitchell, who is now Supervisor Holly Mitchell. She was a state senator in California. She was term limited out, and now she is on the board of supervisors in LA. But Holly was also she and I worked together in a women in government leadership class in 2019. So it's been something that's been I've thought about for many years. Predates me being in the state Senate. Ironically enough. And as I mentioned, I went natural several years ago just because of the harsh chemicals that go with having relaxed hair. Of course, the studies coming out about the health issues you may have when you have your relaxed hair. And so I went natural several years ago. And like many people, I went through that transition of, wearing my hair natural and not always feeling accepted, feeling people recognize, even getting sometimes comments from people like, well, what are you doing? And why is that? And et cetera. And so really seeing firsthand how when you choose to wear your hair different than most people maybe expect or are used to, what that presents for you. And so this year, I working with WREN and Ashley Lido, who's on here as well. We talked about how WREN could help me garner the support to actually get the Crown Act passed here in South Carolina. So I introduced Senate Bill 584 earlier this year, and it is written like a lot of other states that passed it, and it expands protections against racial discrimination by banning bias based on hair texture and styles, such as braids, locks, and afros in the workplace, housing, public spaces, and in schools. So it was introduced first reading the way our state does, and I love this. Thank you, Ren, for doing this. This kind of gives you the process of something actually starting and then how it becomes a law. And so a lot of folks think, okay, how it gets introduced and then, where's it going? And so this is where it is. It's been introduced here in the Senate and is now referred to the Judiciary Committee, which I do I serve on the Judiciary Committee. So what will happen next is once it comes, it has to go through the committee. It will have a subcommittee hearing, which people can actually testify at the subcommittee hearing and any senators can answer questions. Once it is testified, it goes through the subcommittee, it'll go to full judiciary. Once it is passed out of full judiciary, then it will come back on the floor for it to have a reading and then another reading. So this is kind of the process. Once it finishes the Senate, it actually has to go back, do the same process through the House. So I think we got this kind of flipped a little bit on here, but it'll go through that same and then once it passes both bodies, then it will be presented to the governor for law.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Senator Isaac Devine, and thank you very much for your leadership in introducing this bill in the South Carolina Senate. So we, as advocates, and many of us who wear our hair in its natural state, we are definitely looking forward to the work that we can do in community, the action we can take to help support this and further it along so that it does become law here in our state. And I do want to just make a brief note prior to this that it has also been introduced on a federal level. It's been introduced several times and has been reintroduced. So we'll continue to also to keep our eye on that. But we are certainly grateful for the work that's being done here in South Carolina to hopefully help advance this bill to becoming law. So again, Senator, thank you. And so, briefly, just a little bit to talk about why the Crown Act. So, I know a lot of people may be wondering, well, why the Crown Act? And so, what we want to talk about is hair discrimination and its health impacts. And fortunately, for us today, we have an amazing advocate in the healthcare space in Michelle. And so, we are definitely going to ask her to kind of give us her insight on this, as well as talking a little bit about her natural hair journey. But as you can see, there are quite a bit of health impacts when we are talking about wearing our hair in its natural state versus using chemicals in our hair, relaxers, and what have you. I obviously think I have had probably every single hairstyle that you can imagine in my hair. I have been relaxed. I have returned to natural in 2011, but braids, everything's. And so, as some of you may be able to relate, we know that chemical and heat treatments that are used to straighten our hair can be very, very dangerous. In addition to cosmetic issues causing burns and scars, there are also much larger, more serious implications, such as fibroids and increased cancer risks. I think you maybe have seen on the news where there have been lawsuits against companies for increased cancer risks and women being diagnosed with certain types of cancer due to ongoing and prolonged use of relaxers and chemical hair treatments. So, anyone, as Ashley's mentioning in the chat too, anyone, if you care about women's health, you should definitely support this legislation. And again, hair maintenance can limit physical activity. I know some of us can relate. When you first get that hair done, the gym might be out of the question because who wants to pay all that money and get that hair straightened out only to sweat your hair out? So there is a lot associated with hair maintenance that limits our physical activity. And when we're not physically active, we know that that contributes to health disparities that we see very disproportionately that affect our communities, Black and Brown communities. So I am going to, at this point, allow Michelle Greene to talk a little bit about us, her being a healthcare professional and also as someone who wears her hair in its natural state. Michelle, I would love to have you talk just a little bit more about some of the health implications of chemical and heat treatments that we may use to straighten our
Okay.
hair.
Okay. And I'll be speaking from personal experiences. So I started getting relaxers, chemical relaxers at a very young age. I would say maybe 4 or 5 years old. I can remember getting that creamy crack applied to my hair and, to straighten it out so it could be more manageable. And as an adult, like in my mid 30s, that's when I learned that I actually had uterine fibroids. And so doing some researching and just my own theory. I'm like, well, where did this come from? Could it be because I was exposed to those chemicals at a very young age? Maybe that's why I developed those fibroids. So, and speaking of such, I still have those fibroids. I had them removed multiple times, and they grow back. So that's an ongoing issue. I've had 3 or 4 surgeries to have them removed. Those are called myomectomies to have your uterine fibroids removed. And again, they can grow back. It's no guarantee that they're gone forever. And when you have those surgeries, that takes you away from work, so that affects your income. Um, Uterine fibroids, they can be painful. They can cause excessive bleeding during your menstrual cycle. So all of those additional issues, which can also lead to fertility issues, like we mentioned on the screen. If the uterine fibroid is big enough, it can prevent you from getting pregnant, um, delay you from getting pregnant, just cause all kinds of issues. And then you have to see a specialist. You go to your gynecologist, or if you're really experiencing fertility issues, you'll have to go to a reproductive specialist. So those chemicals definitely affect your body, and you pay for it in the long run. So it's always good to stay on top of your health and, monitor what you put inside your body, putting on your skin, which those include relaxers and other chemicals that are harmful for you. And I would say I've been natural over 20 years. I think about 2011 is when I started. And like Senator said, you get some looks like, well, why are you doing that? Or you have people want to talk you out. So I started it early on, and I was like, no, I'll go back and try to relax it one more time after getting talked into it. And it was like, no, this is not working. This is thinning my hair. And I'm just over it. I'm going to start fresh. And I did, and I was so proud that I did it. I did it on my own. I was young, in my young 20s, and my hair just grew softer. It was actually a black color instead of the brown that I had due to the relaxers. And it just helped me to develop confidence in myself and develop confidence in wearing my hair the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's an important thing to note too, the confidence, right, that can come along with it, because a lot of us have been told for a long time that your natural hair, it didn't look good. It isn't prettier. You don't have this type of texture. So, yeah, and we all, most of us know the story about what it means to have, quote, good hair and what hair,
Yeah.
And so I was always taught as a child by my grandmother that any hair you grow out of your head is good hair, and you should always love your hair. So that's what kind of propelled me to return to natural and just stop trying all of the things. But I would also like to give Senator Tameika Isaac Devine an opportunity to kind of speak to this as well, Senator. So if you have any insight that you'd like to share regarding your journey, and any type of story you'd like to share with us, we would certainly love to hear from you on this as well.
Mhm. No, absolutely. Just kind of like what I alluded to, when I first decided to go, it really was about the fact, number one, going and getting a relaxer, every, 6 weeks can get pretty costly. It can be expensive. But also, the research started coming out with, just the damage not only that relaxers can do to your hair, but that the health issues that it may cause. And so I just made the decision myself that I wanted to start going natural. And so, initially, started letting it grow, the relaxer grow out of my hair. And then once I finally got the relaxer grown out of my hair, I would still actually get my hair straightened. And so I would go every week to the salon and get my hair pressed out, flat iron out. And just the heat damage to my hair, with doing that, it just got to be really old. And so I just decided, I said, okay, I'm not going to go through this anymore. And so then after that, well, actually, I'll say that I was doing that, and I decided to kind of change a little bit. But really, what hit is then COVID hit. And y'all remember COVID. Remember when COVID hit, there was like salon,
Mhm.
everything was shutting down, including salons. And so to go into a salon and get your hair straightened was just not an option. And so that's when I actually started going to the protective styles. So I had braids, I had extensions, I had different things during COVID, and then after COVID, or kind of towards the end of COVID, when that became a lot as well, I said, I'm just going to start going and embracing my natural curls. And so that's when I actually went to my natural curls, and it was the kind of all the things of people seeing you and saying, why are you doing that? Or, is there, and then that's another thing. People sometimes will start thinking, well, are you doing this for any other reason? And so it just became apparent to me that there was really just kind of a lack of understanding that our hair is natural, and its natural state is beautiful. It is acceptable. It is professional. And so, in addition to knowing, Dr. Asamoah, knowing Senator, um, knowing Holly, just having, and knowing their advocacy in this space, it was highlighted to me even more through my journey that part of the advocacy in this space is also just educating the community about that if anybody can be accepting, it certainly needs to be us that go through this kind of journey. So that's kind of my journey. And it's just
Mhm.
become even more as a mom of girls. I've just been, my girls, they've never had, I've never done relaxers in their hair. And just seeing them come into embracing their natural curls. My 15-year-old yesterday, she turned 15, and I got so many comments and compliments on her hair, that she's wearing her hair very natural, big, and to see her look at that and embrace it and be proud of that. To me, also just shares another thing, is that what we're also doing is modeling for our children how beautiful their natural selves are. And so that's why, even more so, this is really important to me.
Absolutely. Thank you both for sharing. And yes, Senator, I love that we are modeling for our young girls that their hair is beautiful in its natural state, and it is acceptable, and it is professional. And so thank you so much for sharing that, because yeah, that's very important to continue to instill that into them. Because I certainly have my own stories with relaxers and the damage that they do, and trying to return to natural and grow out of that damaged state, and now allowing your hair to be as it was meant to be in its natural state. So thank you again so much for sharing with us. And so we're going to talk about, too, again, hair discrimination. There's impact in the workplace, which affects the economy, right? So the statistics you see here on your screen were published from Dove's 2023 study. And as you can see, Black women's hair is 2 times more likely to be seen as unprofessional. 2 in 3 Black women change their hair for job interviews, and of that, 41% of women straighten it. Um, I have a story where I have done that. Felt the need to straighten my hair for a job interview, or make sure that the braids I had in were put in a nice, neat bun, and things to look, quote, acceptable. And so a large percentage, as you see, 54% of Black women feel that they must wear their hair straight to succeed in interviews, and are 2 times more likely to face microaggressions if we have coily and or textured hair. And so while this looks alarming, and it is, because these numbers are certainly high, it's very real. And most of us, a lot of us, can relate to this. And so while we are talking about workplace impacts and the economic effect that hair discrimination can have, I want to again give this to Senator Tameika Isaac Devine, as you are working for us on a statewide policy level, and we deal a lot with the economic impacts and how it affects the workforce. I'm sorry, hair discrimination. Can you just kind of speak a little about how, when we're looking at hopefully getting this passed as legislation in South Carolina, how we can then begin to make sure that women understand better going into the workplace, and also that we as a state, even those who are not on this webinar, who may not have personal stories relate to this, can understand how devastating, like the economic implications can be.
No, absolutely. I mean, I laugh because I think a lot about, again, going back to COVID. Um, our mayor, well, I guess our current mayor, our governor. The big thing was like, oh, South Carolina, we're open for business. We're open for business. That became the slogan, open for business, and we pride ourselves on being, quote, a business friendly state, and support, having a great workforce, and wanting companies to thrive here. But you can't have that conversation, and you can't tout the successes of our state being great for business when you don't also acknowledge that the workforce can be severely impacted by discrimination of any kind, but especially when you're looking at something like a hair-based discrimination, and that's really important. And so for me, as I am talking to my colleagues, and getting some awareness around why I introduced this, and why this is something that I want my colleagues to support, I really have to talk about the economics of it. And when you have these kind of data and impacts on our workforce, it is definitely something you need to address, so that you can actually have a more abundant workforce, to supply these businesses that we are recruiting. And so I think it's really important that we understand that this is a real thing. and that it can affect our businesses. And as we're trying to recruit more businesses to the state, it can severely impact what businesses will actually want to come to our state if we're not protecting our workforce. So, that's kind of part of it that I've tried to put out there. And then I think the other thing is that education piece, and that's why these webinars are so important because, as I've talked to some of my colleagues, and I be real honest and transparent. I have a colleague that I had talked to about even co-sponsoring this legislation with me. And the first question was, is this a real thing? And for him, he did not even think that hair-based discrimination was a real thing. And in talking to Dr. Osimo, she talks about a lot that, just educating people on the fact that people think that your hair is something that you can change. And when you look at ethnic groups, yes, it may be something that you can change, but at what cost it does it, what costs to change it? We've already talked about if I'm going to change my hair and I'm going to put a chemical in it that could be harmful, to me as a person. I'm going to put heat in it that could be harmful to my hair and harmful to my scalp. I mean, you're changing it, but it can be harmful. And so I think that part of this education piece for us, we've got to stress the economics of it and what it means to business, but also the fact that this is not something that is just, oh, you make the decision one day, I'm going to change my hair. If you change it, it can actually have a cost, a damaging cost to not only us as a people, but to our state. And when we live in a state that has very challenging health disparities, this is a real conversation, and that also goes back to the cost when you think of the health implications of changing your hair and using chemicals and things, and then what that does to our state, a state that has already huge health challenges, Black maternal health. We've got health disparities. We've got places where people cannot access a doctor. We've got hospitals that are closing. And so when you think about the fact that there might be some health challenges in this state that already has challenges, I think that is the bigger economic issue that we need to make sure that we're communicating.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Michelle, I also wanted to give you an opportunity as well to kind of speak to this while we're talking about workplace, the implications both economically and in the workforce. And so please feel free, coming from your background, not only as a nurse, but as an author and advocate, would love to have, share just a little bit about this particular topic within hair discrimination as well.
Okay. Um, so for me, coming from a nursing background, the workers are primarily women. When I was working on the floor, we were working around a lot of women who looked like me. So for me personally, I didn't experience much discrimination, but there were looks from people who didn't look like me, like, well, what are you doing to your hair, or why are you doing it? Just a lot of questions. And you come to work, take care of your patients. I didn't come here to give you a seminar on why I changed my hair or why my hair looks the way that it does, you know. So I guess you could say curiosity, maybe, or maybe it's a microaggression. I don't know, but it's like I came to work not to give you a lecture, you know.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, because this is such a big deal, especially for those of us who have felt that pressure to change our hair. And for many of us, our hair it's an extension of who we are, it's a form of self-expression. And so feeling like you have to change that in order to be accepted or to fit in is a big
Mhm.
deal. It's can certainly have implications on you emotionally and mentally, like feeling that you just have to have your hair straightened out in order to be successful. It is something that I know a lot of us have dealt with. And
Yeah,
so
or having to have your hair a certain way to make someone else feel comfortable, you know.
absolutely, absolutely. And that kind of speaks to that point of shrinking yourself to make it more digestible for other people. But again, like that's your hair is an extension, a form of self-expression. But you're right, like feeling like you have to change and make your hair straight, straighten your hair in order to make other people feel comfortable, or simply getting to a point where you just don't want to deal with all of the questions, the Is all that your hair? How long did it take you to do
Mm-hmm.
that? How do you wash?
Yeah,
Like the things, right? And we
yeah,
understand that a
yeah,
lot of the times there's that educational component where we don't mind educating, but then some of it is just like, now, come on.
yeah.
But
You know.
so as we mentioned, as mentioned earlier, this webinar was done in the month of July intentionally, not just because that was when the Crown movement began, but July 10th is also, or was also, Black Women's Equal Pay Day. And as we just mentioned a little about the economic impacts of race-based hair discrimination. We see here that nationally, Black women only earn 66 cents for every $1 paid to white non-Hispanic men. And then it drops to 64 cents when we include part-time, part-year workers. But in the state of South Carolina, the gap is even worse. It's 57 cents for every $1 paid to white non-Hispanic men. And so, as you can see here, it would take, at this rate, it would take 200 plus years to reach pay equity. Like when I saw that, I had to let that set in. Like I had to sit with that for a little bit. 200 plus years to reach pay equity. I am of the mindset that where we are is not where we have to stay. And so passing this act on a statewide level, making it law, would again help to mitigate, but also help chip away at the disparity, at this wage gap. And so, again, I know Senator Isaac Devine, you've already spoken to the economic impacts previously. Um, um, Surrounding the race-based hair discrimination, and given these statistics that we are looking at now, if there's anything else that you'd want to add. Again, the 200 plus years to reach pay equity, y'all, was just very jarring to me. And again, this last one, for every 40-year career, um, a woman loses over for every, I'm sorry, a Black woman loses over $1 million due to the wage gap over a 40-year career. That's a lot. That's a lot of money. And so, again, if you care about pay equity, this is also legislation that we all have to support. This is legislation that we have to take action on and advocate for and support our lawmakers and legislators that are also on board with passing this legislation. But I again want to open it up to both of our panelists, to Senator Isaac Devine and to Michelle. If there's anything additional you want to add, if any of these statistics stand out to you, and if you again have any personal stories that you would like to share with us surrounding this, we would love to hear that as well. So I do want to just open it up.
Mm. Well, the only other thing I would add when you talk about the economics is right before I left the city, I actually commissioned an equity survey for actually this Richland County and Lexington County. And part of what this it talked about was, of course, the wealth gap, but it was showing kind of the historic nature of why the wealth gap is so big. And a lot of factors as far as the government's role in gerrymandering and redlining and all that stuff. But when you actually think about just kind of the historic nature again of where we are and what contributes to the wealth gap, this aligns really with that as well. When you when you know that women actually make less than men, but Black women make even less, and then you add in the fact that we are actually encouraging or have it historically encourage Black women to, or any women of ethnic background to assimilate to the majority in order to be gainfully employed and to make money, then it really elevates that, this is really an historic issue. And so if we are ever going to start chipping away, we've got to look at historically what has brought us to this place. And part of that is that hair-based discrimination. And so this is a really good way to start addressing some of those historic issues by taking away any ability for anybody to have hair-based discrimination in the workplace. And also like we talked about the schools as well, it is starting to change that narrative that has historically plagued our community.
Right. And I want to mention too that as we're as Senator Devine was speaking, we have dropped, again, resources in the chat. There is also a link to look at the specific study that Senator Isaac Devine has done. So we do encourage you all that all the resources that we're dropping in the chat to please take a look at those, so that you can have more information and also be informed on what's taking place. And like Senator Devine mentioned, how we got here historically, where we came from, and where we're wanting to go with this, and also helps to inform yourself as much as possible, because there will be a call to action from community, and we want to make sure that everyone is informed and as well versed as possible when we go to advocate on behalf of this legislation. So again, thank you so much for your work on this, Senator Isaac Devine. And Michelle, I would like to know if you have anything you'd like to add.
No, nothing.
Okay. And again, I'll repeat it because I say it all the time when I'm out in community and helping community understand what we are working on a policy level as an organization. I am of the belief that even as things tend to look a little bit grim sometimes, and we see it on a national level and sometimes here statewide and locally, that I'm of the belief that where we are is not where we have to stay. We don't have to remain where we are, and learning how to take action and informing and educating ourselves on what's happening, specifically like we're doing today, that is how we start to dig in and really get involved and take action and become advocates on whatever level you're comfortable with. So I wanted to make sure that I put that out there. And so that brings us to resources and how you can help. Again, we have dropped several resources in the chat, but here's some things you can do. There are join trainings, webinars, letter writing workshops to build your advocacy skills. Sorry. A shameless plug here for myself, being partnership and engagement associate here with WREN. This is what I do. This is a big part of what I do. We're based in Columbia, but we are a statewide organization. So I've had the opportunity to travel all throughout this state, and offer advocacy 101 trainings, letter writing workshops. Letter writing workshops are some of the most popular forms of advocacy that we do out in the state and out in the community, because we constantly hear from people, what can we do? How can we help? We want to do something. Writing letters to our legislators, to our lawmakers, is how you can help us take action. It also helps to build your advocacy skills. Now, you might be saying, I am not a letter writer, I have nothing prolific to say. We got you. We can do. There is phone to action. That is an advocacy tool. Simply resharing a post that we share on social media. I want to encourage all of you to follow us on social media platforms. Resharing, even telling a friend about this webinar and the webinars that we'll have coming up in the future, sharing the link. That is a form of advocacy, right? And we're helping to educate everyone. So, shameless plug. I believe Ashley might put my email address in the chat. Certainly reach out. This is what I do. This is what I love. Also, again, we have an action center on our website, social media, sharing your story. Sharing your story is a big form of advocacy that we look to have community members help us with our work by storytelling. Storytelling is powerful. Storytelling helps get the message out, not just to community, but to our lawmakers, to our legislators. So being willing to open up and share your story. I know some of you have probably heard about, even this past legislative session, about certain bills that have gotten hearings where the community had an opportunity to speak in front of subcommittees. That's a powerful form of advocacy, right? Being willing to share. And we understand that not everybody wants to stand up and speak. So again, we have a form of advocacy for you that will fit you should you decide that you want to take action. And again, stay ready when the General Assembly returns, because again, we are going to have a call to action, and that is where we need you. That is where we need community. And like we said, we are here to help support when people want to share their stories. We have resources, we have actions, we are available to help make this easier, right? Because we want you to understand that the power still lies with the people, but we've got to be willing to do the work. So again, sharing your story, inviting a friend to these events, to these webinars, that is something that you can do. And we are a resource here at WREN for you, whether that is a church group, your community group, just a group of friends. I did a letter writing workshop for a group of women who were good friends, and they all wanted to write about issues-based legislation. And that is exactly what we did. So please understand, we can make this advocacy thing work, however it works for you. And so that being said, I would like to Michelle, Senator Isaac Devine, please feel free to add, letting us know what we can do. I know Senator Isaac Devine, as a lawmaker, as a senator, we get asked all the time in community, do they really care if I send an email? Do they really read our letters? So I would love for you to be able to speak to the importance of community, of you all hearing from community and community being willing to share their stories with you and how that helps shape what you all do at a state level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I can't speak for everyone. And so, do we have folks up here who don't listen? Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of probably why we have some of the bad laws that we have and why some of the good ones don't get passed. However, we do have people up here who listen, and your voice is very powerful. And the ones who don't listen, your voice can change who sits in those seats. And so a couple things I wanted to add because I will tell you that and Ashley has dropped in the chat a lot of really great things for you to reach out to your lawmakers, and please do that. Use those tools because I will tell you there are certain tools that are not effective. If you go to the State House website and just like kind of do a mass email to all senators, it comes out on this side like gobbledygook. I mean, it like has like spaces and weird letters so that we know that someone did not take the time to personalize that. They just went to the website and just clicked email all senators. And so I'm gonna tell you, if you do that, the most of the time they're not gonna read it. And so utilizing the tools that WREN is giving you is very, very important. But I do want to tell you, yes, reach out to your legislators. Personalize it where possible. If I get a ton of form letters, I might read the first two, and then the rest of them I just kind of chunk because I know that somebody did some form letter. And so, try your best to personalize it. Reach out to your legislators. If you do not have the SE Legislature app, I strongly encourage you to download it. You can go to your app store and put an SE Legislature, download that app. You can actually track this bill, so you can put in, excuse me, S584, and then click at the top where it says track the bill, and it'll tell you when there's a committee hearing, how it's progressing. And so, definitely watch what we're doing, but that app will also tell you who your legislator is. If you do not know who represents you, you need to, before the end of this afternoon, you need to know who your legislator is, who your senator is, and who your House member is, and reach out to them. But definitely reach out to your legislators. If you have legislators who are already on board, if you're in my district, of course, it's my bill. You don't need to reach out to me, but you do need to reach out to other folks. You need to reach out to your House member. If you live in my district and okay, Tameika's on board, but I have a cousin who lives in Anderson, and that senator may not be on board. Call your cousin and ask them to call their legislator, because I will tell you, legislators actually do look and see, where their emails are coming from. And if they're coming from people who don't represent, that they don't represent, they're more likely to ignore those. And so we need to make sure that people who are actually in the districts of these people who may not always be on board, that they're reaching out, that they're hearing from them. And then lastly, I would just say is definitely share those personal stories. Every single time I speak on a bill, I try and speak and give a person, put a face to that bill, and speak and share a story that someone shared with me. Stories go a long way. And so if you have a story about you've been discriminated against based on your hair, if you have a story about, the health implications like Michelle talked about because of straightening your hair or using chemicals, share those stories because those will be very impactful. And then I know I said last, but no, this one really is last. And then what I will tell you is when we do, not everybody can take off work and come up here and testify, and I get that. But when we do have the committee hearings on the House side and on the Senate side, if you can come up here and speak to the bill, that is really, really, really important. And Ashley, I should put in there, if you can't come speak, she put on in the chat about how can you submit written testimony. It is important that you go on record supporting a bill, and that is what's going to help us get this passed.
Thank you so much, Senator Isaac Devine. All very, very great to know and very, very useful as we speak to community and get those questions. So thank you so much for that. And Michelle, also, as being an advocate yourself, please add or speak to how maybe you've used your advocacy skills, how you continue to do them, just being someone who, like myself and most of us who are in community and serving as an advocate on behalf of of the Crown Act, certainly please, we would love to hear any of your insight on this as well, the importance of taking action and staying engaged.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say, just on the local level for me, I go to different events and I have my chart with statistics about the Dove research study about the Crown Act, and I tell people about it. I pass out the little cards with the statistics on there, and people ask me questions, and I tell them my experience, and they're black, they're white, they just want to know. And then if let's see, a few weeks ago I was at the Charleston Natural Hair Expo, and I was talking to different ones who came by and told them about the Crown Act. A lot of them didn't know about it. I even spoke with some cosmetology instructors. They were not informed about the Crown Act. So I networked with them and was telling them about the Crown Act and even asked them to join the webinar. So just telling people who are willing to listen, people who are willing to share their story. I share mine, they share theirs, and it's like we could just talk all day about our experiences and whatnot. But like Senator Isaac Devine said, it's good to share your story. We'll find commonality somewhere, but it's also, it's great to share your story. Share it verbally, share it on your social media, go live, just make a post. Like you said, you can repost the WREN post. I do that too. The Black Women's Equal Pay Day, July 10th. I didn't know that. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, that's neat. So it's always something to learn. So just share your experience. You may be helping someone may be helping you. Just continue to share your story on your platform, wherever you go. Just bring awareness.
Absolutely. I love that. Yep, everybody, we can all do our part in advocacy in some way, shape, or form. And so, that being said, I'm just sharing a little bit. These are the resources. Ashley has put them in the chat for us, but we have a link to Michelle's website and her book called Quit Making Excuses and Lock Your Hair. And so while we're doing that, I want to we have just a couple of minutes left, want to be mindful of everyone's time, but I would like to find out if there are any questions, and I think we might have a question for Senator Isaac Devine in our, believe it's in the chat if we have it. I
We
think, I'm
have it
sorry,
in
I'm
the
not sure.
we have it in
Yes,
the Q&A. Hi everyone, and Senator
yes.
Devine. The question is from Reba asking if the governor has expressed any interest in signing the Crown Act. And I wanted to make it clear from the WREN side, I have not gone to the governor's office myself. So I was wondering if you had had any preliminary conversations yet, as we're in the early stages.
Right. I have not had any conversations with Governor McMaster on it. I mean, honestly, if it passes our legislature, I don't have any reason to believe that the governor will not sign it. This is not one of those issues that he would veto if it went through both houses. I think the biggest thing that and what we need to be focused on is getting it through both chambers. And just to be real honest with you, where we are right now, we're just getting, there are a lot of things that have racial undertones up here that even if it's a great bill, it automatically hits some opposition. And so I'm not disillusioned that this is not going to be a tough battle, because it sounds like a no-brainer, but because when people hear, racial and things, we've got Freedom Caucus and other folks like that. I do think that what is in our favor is that it passed in Texas. And so a lot of where we are here, if it's Florida and Texas, then it's good for South Carolina, some people believe. And so I do think that that's positive for us. And so I just think our focus right now is on the members of the legislature, your senators and your House members. And if we can get it through both chambers, I don't have a doubt that the governor will sign it.
Wonderful. And
Awesome.
then Aisha, there was another question that I made sure to answer, but I'm going to verbalize it just for all of our audience members. So we
Okay.
had a wonderful person named Cheryl let us know about the Crown Act work that they have been doing in Sumter, and along with USC Columbia and Benedict. So somebody who we all need to connect with in the future. Glad to have a fellow warrior on the call. And they specifically asked if our South Carolina bill made any changes to the legislation to include length and color in the legislation. And yes, Senator Devine made sure that in her initial drafting that, and I put this code section 1-13-30 for those of us policy wonks to include both the hair length and the color so that the discrimination that we've seen out of Texas that had lawsuits would be addressed in our legislation. So we are constantly reviewing and learning from the other states that have passed this legislation. And if anyone knows of any additional pieces, both myself and Senator Devine are always open to making sure that that policy is exactly what it needs to be for South Carolina.
Awesome. Thank you. I don't, were there, and I think that was it for the questions thus far. Well,
Yep, that's
everyone.
all the questions I see. Thank you.
Okay, well, everyone, again, thank you all so much for being here with us today. Thank you to Michelle Greene-Smalls. Thank you to Senator Tameika Isaac Devine. We greatly appreciate your time, your wonderful insight, and everyone, again, we've dropped several resources in the chat for you all. So please utilize those resources so that you can stay abreast of everything that's happening with the Crown Act. And again, we appreciate each and every one of you for being here today. And so thank you. And please stay engaged with WREN as we work on this and other policy matters. But we appreciate you. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day and be on the lookout for our webinar follow-up with all of the information. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.